Hi class, in this video we're reviewing the basics of what we've studied this year in geometry. So in the first problem we're given a coordinate rule and we're determining the image of point A, which has coordinates -9 and 3. So x is -9 and y is 3. So if we plug those in, -9 for x, 3 for y, and calculate -9 minus 5 is -14. And 2 times 3 is 6, so that's our image. To work backwards to find the pre-image, then instead of adding 2, we'll subtract 2. And instead of subtracting 6, we'll add 6 to the y. So -2 minus 2 is -4. And 2 plus 6 is 8. So that's our pre-image. In the next question, which shape has exactly one line of symmetry? That's the isosceles trapezoid. The next problem, we're reviewing transformation. So looking at the context clues, RM 90 degrees. So that tells us that if there's that angle 90 degrees, we're doing a rotation, so rotating 90 degrees. The key here is that a rotation goes from X to Y. So a positive rotation is counterclockwise. So that's the key idea to review. Positive rotation counterclockwise. So rotating NOPQ by 90 degrees, then we can use patty paper to see that this is our rotation. The next problem, we're rotating triangle GHI 180 degrees. So the direction that you rotate does not matter in this case because it's 180 degrees. 180 degree means that it's point symmetry. The distance to the point is the distance past the point. So the distance of 1 here is a distance past f of 1. There's my I prime. Okay, so distance of 1, 2, 3 over 1. 1, 2, 3 over 1. Here's my point h prime. Then 1, 2, so 1, 2, here's my point G prime. So connecting those, I have my 180 degree rotation. Next one, we're reflecting triangle CDE over line AB. So point D reflects here. Point C, we have 1, 2, 3 to the line, 1, 2, 3 past the line. So there's my C prime. And E actually stays right on there. There's my E prime. So connecting those, we'll have our reflection right there. Last problem, we're translating triangle JKL right 3 and up 2 because we have the vector 3, 2. Okay, so translating that right 3 up 2. 1, 2, 3 up 2. There's my L prime. 1, 2, 3 up 2. Here's my K prime. And 1, 2, 3 up 2. Here's my J prime. So there's my translation right there. The next problem, we have that the two angles here, these two same-side interior angles, are supplementary, meaning that they add up to 180. So that means that blank plus blank equals 180. Solving that equation, we could combine like terms. We'll have 14x plus 12 is 180. So when we take away 12, 14x is 168. Dividing by 14, x is 12. So that's your answer. Next problem, you have that the two angles are congruent, the two alternate exterior angles. So we could do blank equals blank, part equals part. So writing that equation, 9x minus 40 equal to 5x plus 32. Solving that equation, if we minus 5x to both sides, we'll get 4x. Add 40 to both sides is 72. So x is 18, and that's your answer. Next problem, finding the missing angles. If we mark up the diagram, we have the vertical angles 107 here, 73 because that's this linear pair. So then the 73 would be here, and the 107, because the 73 makes that alternate interior z pair with the parallel lines. Okay, then over here we have a 48, because there's the alternate interior angles, and then 132 is the linear pair. Determining whether the two triangles are congruent. For this first problem, we don't have enough information. All we know is we have two isosceles triangles where the sides are the same, but we don't know anything about the extra angles or a third side or anything. So that's no. The next problem, we have this reflexive side that they share. So that means that we have side, angle, side to prove that the two triangles are congruent. So yes, and that's by side, angle, side. The next problem, at first when we take a look at this, we see that it's side, side, angle. So we would think that that is not one of them. But actually this is the exception, because since we have the right angle, we have hypotenuse in leg. Hypotenuse in leg. So this is yes, because of the hypotenuse leg theorem to prove the two triangles are congruent. Marking up this diagram, we have the vertical angles. So moving around the triangle, we have angle, angle, side. Angle, angle, side. So this is yes, the two triangles are congruent by angle, angle, side theorem. In the next problem, we're talking about segments BY and YD. What I noticed there is that they're congruent because in a parallelogram, the diagonals bisect each other. So that means that we could write part equals part. So x plus 10 is equal to 3x plus 2. Solving this equation, minus x to both sides, minus 2 to both sides. So x is 4. In the next section, we'll mark up the angles. So given that angle BAD is 83, and we're also given that BCY here is 33. So by the alternate interior, we'll have 33 right there, which forces this angle BAY to be 50 to add up to 83. So the missing angle in this problem is 50 degrees. Next problem, we're given angle PNO is 40 degrees, so we can mark up the angles in this rectangle. Okay, so first we notice that we have all these isosceles triangles, so the base angles are the same. Both of those are 40. So if those are 40, and the triangle has to add up to 180, so this third angle has to be 100. So by the vertical angle here, this one's 100, and these ones also have to be 40 by the symmetry. Okay, but we also have that this is 90 degrees, so we have 50 here. So in those isosceles triangles, we have 50, 50, and then this third angle is 80. So clearly this is not drawn to scale, but that's fine. So we have 80, and then the 50s over here. And then once the diagram's marked up, it's easy for us to answer our questions. So we'll have 50 degrees, 90 degrees for angle QPO, 80 and 40, and we figured out the problem. The next problem, we're given these two triangles are similar, so we know that their sides are proportionate, so setting up those proportions, so solving for x. Okay, so finding x, we could set up the proportion. X over 13.5 is equal to 6.5 over 9.75. So checking to make sure that's consistent, we have that the x is to the 13.5 as the 6.5 is to the 9.75. So that is consistent with our marks. We could cross multiply, Find x, that x is 9. Setting up a proportion for y. One way to do it, there's many ways to do it, but one way is to say y over 7 is 13.5 over 9. So cross multiply there, and I would get y is 10.5. One way to set up the proportions here, given that we have these similar triangles because of the angle-angle similarity theorem. Okay, so one way to set up the proportions would be to say that x to 5 is equal to 9 to 6. So cross multiplying, x is 7.5. Cross multiplying, I would have 9 times 5 is 45. So 6x is 45. So when we divide by 6, that's how we get x is 7.5. Solving for y, we could say y to 12 is 6 to 9. So cross multiplying, y is 8. Setting up proportions here, one way to do it is to say 6 is to x as the whole side 8 is to 12. So 6 is to x as 8 is to 12. When you cross multiply, that will get x is 9. Setting up a proportion for y, we could say 6 is to 8. 6 is to 8 as y is to 10. So when we cross multiply that, we'll get y is 7.5. So those are our answers. Next problem, applying SOHCAHTOA. Okay, because we have an angle in a side, so we're finding a missing side. Okay, in this, from the 36, the x is our opposite side. The 12 is the adjacent side. So that tells us we're using tangent of 36 is opposite over adjacent. So that's x over 12. So when we cross multiply that, we'll get x is 12 tangent 36. So on the calculator, that is 8.7. Next problem, labeling the sides. Here is our theta that we're looking for. So we have our adjacent side here and hypotenuse here. So A and H, we're using cosine. But we're finding an angle, so we're doing cosine -1 of 8 over 11. Typing that into the calculator, we'll get 43 degrees. Another example of SOHCAHTOA here. So we have, here's our reference angle 63. Opposite of that angle and the hypotenuse. So it looks like this problem's using sine. So we're using sine of 63 is 9 over x. So when we go to cross multiply that problem, we'll get x sine 63 is equal to 9. We'll have to divide by sine 63, so x is 9 divided by sine 63. So on the calculator, then that equals 10.1 for our answer. Next problem is finding area. So if we split this, we could mark that up as sides 5 and 10 and x. So finding x squared plus 5 squared is 10 squared. Solving that, we'll get about x is about 8.6. So with that 8.6 value, then the area of a triangle is 1/2 base times height. So that's 1/2. The base is 10 times the height of 8.6. So multiplying that out, we'll get approximately 43.3 square centimeters. Next problem, finding the area. The problem is that things are on diagonals, so this is 1 space by 2 space. So Pythagorean theorem, 1 squared plus 2 squared is c squared. So c is the square root of 5. So this distance here is square root of 5. Going the other way, we have 1, 2, 3, 4 by 2. 4 by 2, so Pythagorean theorem, we'll have 4 squared plus 2 squared is c squared, so 16 plus 4 is c squared. So c is the square root of 20. So our area of the rectangle is base times height. Square root of 5 times the square root of 20 is going to be the square root of 100, which is equal to 10. So our area is 10. This problem, I could recognize the 3, 4, 5 right triangle right there. So our height of the parallelogram is 4. The base is 9, so area is base times height. So that's 9 times 4, which is 36 square centimeters. The volume of the cylinder is pi r squared h, so it's the area of the circle times the height that quote-unquote prism works. Okay, so pi r squared, our radius is 1 since the diameter is 2, so we'll have pi times 1 squared times 5. Well, 1 squared is 1, so 1 times 5 is 5, so 5 pi is the volume. That's in cubic centimeters. Next problem, we can assume that this is a square pyramid, so dimensions are 10 by 10. That means that this section here is 5 by 13. So the height of this pyramid is 12. Since it's a 5, 12, 13 right triangle, we could get that Pythagorean theorem. Our volume is 1/3 the area of the base times the height. So the area of the base is 10 times 10, so that's 100. And the height we calculated is 12. So multiplying that out, we'll get that the volume is 400 cubic centimeters. Finally, the volume of this cube is 3 by 3 by 3. So volume of the cube is length times width times height. So that's 3 to the third, 3 times 3 times 3, so that's 27 cubic centimeters. Here's our formula for the equation of a circle. The key idea is that we have to switch the signs of the center and square the radius. So switching the signs for the center, the -3 becomes +3, the +8 becomes -8, and 7 times 7 is 49, so the answer is B. For the next problem, we're finding slope, distance, and midpoint of those 2 points. Slope is change in y over change in x. So the change in the y coordinates goes from -7 to 2, so that goes up 9. The x coordinate goes from 1 to -3, so that goes down 4. So the slope is -9 over 4, and that's our rate of change. To find the diagonal distance between the 2 points, we could think of Pythagorean theorem. So that distance squared is the change in x squared plus the change in y squared. So we just saw the change in x was 4, or really -4, but -4 times -4 is 16. So we'll have 4 squared plus 9 squared is our distance squared. So solving that out, So when we add and square root, then our distance between the points is 10.8. Finally, we're finding the midpoint or the average. So the average of the x's is going to be 1 plus negative 3 divided by 2. So that's negative 2 divided by 2 is negative 1. And the y average is negative 7 plus 2 divided by 2. So that's negative 2.5. So the midpoint is coordinates negative 1, negative 2.5. The average of the x coordinates and the average of the y coordinates. The next standard takes us into probability. What's the probability of choosing a Canon printer? Well, for this problem, there's 153 total Canon printers out of a total of 254 possibilities. So that's 153 out of 254. For the next problem, what's the probability of Xerox and large? Okay, so Xerox and large would be that 78. So it's 78 compared to that total of still 254. The next problem says, what's the probability of choosing a Canon given that you have a large business? So this is this conditional probability we have given that there's a large business. That means that the total of large businesses is out of 132. So this is where that total changes. And out of that 132, how many have the Canon? That's 54 out of the 132. The last problem says, what's the probability of choosing either a small or a Canon? Okay, so the total number of small businesses is 122. The total number of Canon printers is 153. So that's 122 plus 153. But the problem is that we added that 99 twice. We see that that 99 overlaps for the Canon and the small. So we have to take away that 99. So when we do that calculation, that's how we get 176 out of the total 254 that we've been having. Finally, the circle problems. For this one, we're looking for the distance from A to B. So there's our x. So figuring this up, marking up the diagram, we have the radius is 5. We have the tangent line, so there's our right angle. The whole hypotenuse here is 13. So we have Pythagorean theorem, 5 squared plus x squared equals 13 squared. So it's a 5, 12, 13 triangle. So AB is 12. Next problem, we're looking for the distance from D to A. So here's our x. So figuring out that distance, marking up the diagram, we have a 3, 4, 5. That's not 3. The hypotenuse is 5. Triangle, but the radius is 4. So if the radius is 4 and the hypotenuse is 5, that means that x distance, that dA distance, is 1. Finally, marking up this distance, we're looking for the AB distance here. The radius is 3. So it looks like we just have a Pythagorean theorem problem here. X squared plus 3 squared is that whole hypotenuse, which is 9. So that's 9 squared. So x squared plus 9 is 81. Take away 9, so x squared is 72. So square rooting both sides, x is equal to 8.49. So that's our answer. That's the distance from A to B is 8.49. Thanks for watching and good luck on your quiz.